Welcome again to another episode of Portrait Profit Show. Thank you for spending your time here on a Monday afternoon. Just so you guys know, and I think you all do, but just in case, this show is sponsored by Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, so that this content is totally free. It doesn't cost anything. Well, it costs your time. But it doesn't cost, nothing comes out of your bank account. And this is, it exists solely to uplift the photographer community, so that all of us who have this passion for photography and want to use that passion as our income source, or a sole income source, or a supplemental income source, or just some extra money, so that we can do that in a way that we're not losing money. We're actually making a profit, because you deserve that. You don't deserve to work your tail off and wind up with no money in the bank. You deserve to have a profit here. This is a real business, and we need to be making a profit. And we have this show. We prepare everything so that we have one more way every single week of you being able to reach those goals. Today, we have with us, as usual, a representative from Digital Pro Lab, Javi Valdez.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me. Yeah, again, I think most of the people here on the Zoom are pretty regular, attendees. But for those of you who don't know, my name's Javi Valdez. Like Jim said, I am here on behalf of Digital Pro Lab. I am the director of client development over here at the lab. So kind of my day-to-day is working with, various clients who are either new or current clients of ours that are trying to optimize their, photography and their, business through printing. And so whether that be, putting together packages or working together on, larger projects that they have, that's kind of what I help to facilitate here at the lab. But just like Jim said, we wanted to put something together for you guys to help uplift the photography community here in San Antonio. And just put out content that we felt was sorely missing from a lot of different streams of information that we tend to come across online, whether it be on YouTube or wherever you find your photography information. And so I think Jim does a great job every Monday of breaking that down, and I'm really excited to actually see kind of what we have planned in the future. I know we've got some plans as far as making some updates to the format, and I think it'll be exciting to see where this goes moving forward.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Javi. So yeah, Zoom is a great resource. We definitely like it, but we are looking at a different type of live streaming. One that I believe causes us better results in connecting to be able to simulcast. With Zoom and Facebook combo, it seems to be works sometimes and doesn't work other times. Well, we want it to work every single time. We want a lot of consistency to it. And so we're looking at some different solutions, and as we could be sharing those with you, actually doing one as soon as next week. So yeah, we're constantly working on this, improving, and of course we accept and encourage your suggestions on what could do to improve this and make it better, because our goal is to uplift the photography community. And if you've got ideas and solutions, suggestions on how that you could help us make that happen, we want that. The more minds, the better. So once again, thank you for being here today on this overcast but beautiful Monday afternoon. We're here today to talk about an interesting topic. I actually changed its name because I figured more people would have an interest based on the title. I called it "Create Your Box Before You Think Outside of It." Now, here's a little piece of information. Prior to today, I wrote this several years ago, but prior to today, I called it how to create your policy manual. Well, that doesn't sound anywhere near as interesting. So I changed its name. There's a lot in a name. The things you see right off the bat. We do make our decisions pretty darn quickly. And I think most of us might think, well, I don't need a policy manual. That's something that big companies have. All companies need it. And through the time that you're spending here with me today, you're going to see what I mean. I hope you're ready. So for those of you who are here on Zoom, hopefully you see in chat that I have uploaded the handout for today. You guys give me a thumbs up if you have that. And if you don't, then I can resend it. So let me know real quick before I move on. Do you see that in the chat? And by the way, if you're on an Apple product, you might not see it. I think their security measures kind of block that, the sharing of files sometimes. So does everybody have it? Renee, you don't have it. Can I send it again? I'm going to send it again to see if that's the issue. Okay, I just sent it again. Did that make any difference?
Yeah, I'm seeing both of the posts on my end over here.
You're seeing both posts? Good, good.
I'm on my phone, so it might not come up because of that.
You're probably right. Okay. Dang it. Well, I will be showing the handout on my screen, so at least you'll be able to see and follow what I'm talking about there. So good. All right, you guys. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Well, it's up on my screen. Why is it not listed in the list? Come on, Zoom. Now it's showing it. All right, so you should be able to see my the handout right now. Give me a thumbs up if you see that. Awesome. Yay. All right. You've heard the saying, think outside the box. So whose box? And what box are we talking about? Have you built your box yet? So you have something to think outside of? Well, let's do it now. I have this philosophy on that particular saying that you can't think outside of the box if you've never created your box. This idea isn't limited to just the creative side, but the business side as well. In this lesson, we're going to go over 3 steps to creating your box, or in other words, your boundaries, your scope of business, your expectations, so that not only you know, but so that you become better at conveying who you are and what you do with your prospects, clients, and if applicable, your employees. The result of this effort forms the basis for your business's policy manual. So in this first step, we need to understand why you even need a box. Why create policies for your business? You've heard of and likely believe in the philosophy of exceeding expectations. And you've heard that it's a good idea to underpromise and overdeliver. But here's the thing. This assumes that you've done a good job of setting the expectations of the job and working with you, so that you actually have the potential to exceed those expectations, and so that your client even realizes that that's what it is you're doing. If they don't know that you are going above and beyond, then from their point of view, you aren't. So you've got to inform them. And you do that before. We start it by planning. Otherwise, you're unknowingly inviting their own assumptions and preconceived ideas in the place of what you intend to do for them. Humans fill in gaps where the gap or where there is a gap or where there's uncertainty, we fill it with assumptions. So let's fix that before it has the potential to become a problem. Now, just a little aside, almost none of my students have ever already done this before, and maybe some that have, but it was very much incomplete. Most photographers just assume and believe that things are just the way they are, that everybody knows this stuff, that it's normal. But that is completely unrealistic. Your client doesn't read your mind. The only thing you are truly safe to assume is that they know nothing about your business and how you do things. So you must tell them. Again, one of the goals of a service-oriented business is to over-deliver and under-promise. How can you do that if you've never set the expectation with your client? It is your responsibility to define client expectations, vendor expectations, and associate expectations. That would be employees, contractors, interns. Don't leave these things up to them. And you must, and just simply assume. Define the things that form your business policies, your box right away. And make sure that every one of your prospects, vendors, and associates know that they know what they can expect from you before they've had an opportunity to work with you. Now, let's make sure that I'm being clear on this. Hang on just a second. So when I'm talking about knowing who you're setting expectations with everyone, I'm talking about everyone. I think most of us have a good idea of when we're working with clients. That part makes sense. Where we're explaining to them what it is that we do, how we do business, allowing them to choose this is if that's what they want and not if they don't. But this also applies to everyone we cross paths with. This includes if you've got an intern or someone who's shadowing you, you need to let them know what it is you're doing. But your vendors, you're with them for a long time. You need to know what it is that they do. You need to form a good relationship with them. And the better relationship you have with them, the more they know about what it is you're trying to accomplish, the better partners they are with you. Your vendors want to help. It's in their best interest to help. Javier Digital Pro Lab wants to help. Why would he want to do such a thing? Because you stay with Digital Pro Lab for years, maybe your entire career. That's why they want to help. It makes sense. Same thing with Landers Photography School. If you are successful at what you do, and I was part of that process, you're going to continue working with me. You're going to tell others about me. But it only happens with good working relationships. And the only way that you can convey what it is that you do, what it is you're trying to accomplish, is if you've done a good job of planning it so that you can convey it. I have another philosophy, and it's called a belief filter. Actually heard this from someone else. I'm trying to remember who it was, but he called it a belief window, and which is great. That's a great way to describe it also. But we're photographers, so it seemed more appropriate to me to call it a filter. So a filter is just something that you're photographing through, something that is manipulating or changing the way something looks as a result of of coming through that filter. Well, you've got a filter. You as a human. You've got a filter. Yes, it comes from your mind. It's not something you necessarily put in front of your eyes. I guess you could put sunglasses, but that's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about your opinions, the things that you believe in. We see everything through a figurative filter of accumulated experiences, stories we've heard, books we've read, maybe the people that we look up to and believe, our education. There's lots of things that form our filter. It's what causes two different people to look at the same exact thing and see something different, sometimes completely different. And that's awesome. But it also has the potential to cause problems. Sometimes we believe we know something before we actually know the whole story. We know how to react. We know what we've done, what we thought, or what we've avoided before. But moving forward without enough knowledge can get us into trouble. Do not assume anything that has the potential not to be assumed. In other words, ask questions and learn multiple ways of looking at the same thing. Would it be fair for a judge to hear just one side before making a decision? It wouldn't even make sense to us for a judge to do such a thing. And yet we do it constantly. Now you may think, well, I'm not a judge. I don't have to do that. It's not a matter of have to, guys. It's a matter of understanding a situation. I mean, let's say that two of us were standing in front of a statue of a horse. And afterwards we left and both of us were interviewed by someone who wanted to report about this new statue that had been unveiled. And I talked to the person who's interviewing me and I said, oh, it's really cool. The horse is looking to the right. The other guy is on the opposite side and he goes to someone else. We don't even cross paths. And he said, it's really cool. The horse is facing the left. Huh. Is one of us lying? No, of course not. We had different points of view. We were on different sides of the subject. We saw it differently as a result. Both of us are correct. There's a lot of situations, guys, it's just like that. There are times when you feel very strongly about a subject, but if you'll allow yourself an open mind, you'll see that other person wasn't lying. They just came at it from a different point of view, which is just as valid as yours. I'm saying open your mind instead of closing it. When you put up your blinders and say, I'm right, you may be. You probably are for yourself, but that doesn't mean people with different belief filters do not see it different, and they are just as right as you. Clients come with their own preconceived ideas, their own preconceived thoughts, expectations. In other words, their own belief filter. Example, how about maybe you don't include digital files with the sale, but the last photographer they worked with did. So you think that if you don't, so wouldn't you think that if you don't set the expectations and share how you do business, that this is a potential problem? Yeah, of course it is. We have to know what it is that we do and why we do it. Why is an important variable. Don't ever overlook why. Don't ever take for granted the why. And write down the why when you make your decision for your business and for your life. Write it down. Because after a while, you're going to forget what it was that motivated you to choose that path. You may think that's not important, but with your business, it is. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Renee said she was on her phone, and now I'm thinking about her not being able to see this very well. Let's see. Zoom. About 200. There we go. It's about as big as I can put it on my screen. So hopefully that's better for you guys. Is that better? Or it doesn't change anything? It's good? Okay, awesome. Number 2. Oh, I have something in the chat. Oh, okay. Okay. So it wouldn't matter anyway. Cool. Thanks, Renee. Number 2, define your box. Now, these are going to be policy categories and the things that go into those. But let's talk about these bigger items. Here's some details. There are thousands of things that you do for your clients. You know this. Thousands of things. Lots of them are really, really small, but there are thousands of things that you do for your clients. There are things you expect of your clients. There are things that you expect of your vendors. There are things they expect of you, any of which can ruin a business relationship. You've seen it. You've also worked with companies who you do not work with anymore. And there was some specific reason why you stopped. Everything else might have been fine. You've seen it before. Something you thought was not that important, but a person is incredibly upset by it. Lots of things can ruin a business relationship, and some of them you feel are nothing. It's not that big a deal, but they do. They see it from a different point of view. They have a different belief filter. But when you define expectations, you greatly reduce the potential for these kinds of misunderstandings. So in no particular order, here are 5 base categories. So hopefully you've got your pen. If not, I'm giving you 2 seconds to grab it. I guess I'll give you another 2 seconds to grab a piece of paper if you don't have it. Here's 5 categories. Again, no particular order. Processes. So I'll give you a second to write that down. Processes is the one we're putting in number 1. The order doesn't matter. Processes are how they can expect things to be done. Now, from your point of view, it's how you do things. It's how you choose to do business. It's every single decision you make. It is also what you title the things that you do. What are their names? I think things should have interesting names. Everything that you do, give it a title, unique to you. That way, when you're talking about it, you can actually say that it is unique because you're the only one with that particular named process. For instance, I call my planning sessions design consultations. Now, I know a lot of other people are calling it that too. Many of them are my students, but also students of other photography teachers, because there's a lot of people that call it that. I didn't come up with that name. I just like that name. Design consultation. But I have to define, well, what do I do at this step of the process? You have to do this at every step, every single process that you do. Define what it is that you do. But in this instance, design consultation, how does it go? What happens before, during, and after that planning session? How about showing your photographs? How do you choose to do that? Now, you may choose to do that differently based on the type of job. I specialize in emotional family portraits as home decor. And so I show my photographs, this is my process, in their home. It's written down. What is it that I do? What things, what tools will I need in order to make it happen? My projector is a big tool. But if I don't have my remote, then it makes it a little bit more difficult. If I forget the computer, it makes it more difficult. If I don't bring the extension cord, I might not be able to do it without asking my client to borrow theirs. And I don't want to do that. They're happy to let me borrow it if that were to happen, of course, but I don't want it to happen. I want to look like I'm in control, because I am, because I planned it. When do you expect them to order? Do you expect them to pay when they order? How do you accept payment? Do you have payment plans? Every single piece of what you do. And this just, I'm only talking right now about the time that you spend with the client. This also is your behind the scenes processes that we're talking about here. Think about every single step that you do and write it out. Your processes. Next one, number 2, your price. Price is kind of self-explanatory, but how are you going to share your price? What are your prices going to be? Are you going to regularly increase your prices? And if so, with what regularity? Once a year? Twice a year? And how much? 5% increase every year? 10% increase every year? What are you planning on doing? You can change this thing as you go along, but have something written down. Think about it. By the way, a 10% increase, it's not that much, but if that scares you, then make it 5. But think about it. If you're charging 400 for something and now it costs 440, how many clients are going to say, oh my gosh, are you freaking kidding me? Forget about it. I'm out. I just don't think anybody's going to do that. But if you feel that way, well, then just increase it by 5%. It's an amount that nobody even notices. Taxes are almost 10%, sales tax here, at least in the state of Texas. So an increase of 5% is just people aren't going to notice it. I'm thinking they may notice a 10%, but I don't think they'll be bothered by it. And maybe you choose to do it in a different way. I know of one person who every certain number of jobs that they sell, they increase the price of that product. If it hasn't been selling, then they don't increase the price of the product, at least not much. But if it is selling really well, this particular person is every 3 sales, they increase it by 5%. Got to take good records if you're going to do that, but it can work. It's one way. There's a lot of ways, but you define how you're going to do it. Every single aspect, even the things you're not even thinking about, but anything that has the ability to change. What is my policy on changing it? What are my beliefs? What does my belief filter say is the right thing to do and why? Write it down. So the first one was process as plural. Second is price. What are your prices? How will you raise them? How are you going to convey them? At what point in time are you going to convey them? Or what points in time? You're probably going to convey it a lot more than once. When are you going to do that? The first time I do that is usually the first phone call. I want them to know right off the bat what my product costs. I'm not trying to get them to go to the next step unless I know and they know approximately how much I'm going to charge. And so one of the things after I found out what it is that they want is I make a statement and I say, before we go any further, can I give you an indication of how much you can plan on investing? And of course they say yes to that question. They want to know how much, wouldn't you? Most people in your situation invest between X and Y, and you give them real numbers. With me, it's usually between 1,000 and 3,000. Most people are in that range. And then I define what it is they get for that, because I know the next question. Why wait for the question? I know what's coming. They're going to say, well, what do I get for that? So don't wait for them to ask the question, preempt it. So here's that whole sentence. Before we go any further, can I give you an indication of how much you can plan on investing? Yes. Does that fit within your budget? I want to know, and I want them to know. That's my policy. I let people know during that phone call before they have even had a chance to choose me, before they've had a chance to put any money towards what it is that we're potentially going to do here. I want them to know. There can't be any surprises here. Processes, price. The next one is deliverables. These are just the things that they can expect to receive from you physically. Now, digitally also, because a lot of things that we do are digital. For instance, if you do headshots for people's LinkedIn profiles, digital. That's the deliverable. You're delivering it via email. So what can a client expect? This has to do with timeline, but timeline is actually the next one. But when can they expect it? What is it that they can expect? If you deliver digital files, but you deliver them as low res, we should say that. And define what that means. Because I guarantee you, even just the people who are watching this right now have different definitions of what low res is. It may be, generally speaking, a very similar definition, but our belief filter causes it to be slightly different. But anything that is the finished product, how are they going to receive it? Are you going to size digital files? For instance, if someone orders a digital file from me, a full res digital file, or high res, I don't send out full res, because full res means I haven't done anything to it. So it's high res, but I optimize it for size. So I optimize it for 8x10 prints, because anything larger than that, I want to do myself. I don't really want them to do it. You can print probably up at 16x20 with an image that's been optimized for an 8x10, but still. I also tell them that this digital file, my digital files are $350 each. Each digital file is $350. And my 8x10s are $350. It's the same exact price. I think your 8x10, your digital files should be the same price, somewhere between your 8x10 and your 16x20. That's what your digital price should be. And the reason is because how much less time does it take you to do the work on a digital file compared to a print? A print just doesn't take that long, partially because you're not the one doing it. You're sending it to the lab, but even still, it doesn't take that much of your effort. So therefore, and the cost is small. Digital ProLab doesn't charge a lot for this stuff. It's tiny by comparison compared to everything else that you have to invest in and what your client is paying. Tiny. It's just a fraction. Deliverables. This includes prints. Are you going to frame your work? I do. You don't have to. But if you're going to, it needs to be on this list. You need to say what it is you're going to do, how you're going to do it, what a client can expect as an end result. How are you going to package it? How are you going to deliver it? Are you going to install it on their wall? And if so, define and describe that. The whole thing, what it is you do, what it is you say, the entire experience from their point of view and yours, what tools you're going to need in order to install it on their wall. Yeah, write it all down. This is part of it. By the way, this gives them an indication of your style, the kind of work that you do, the approach you take to doing business, how you do business. So this is a good indicator to let people know what they're going to expect, because they want to know, what do I actually get for that? All right, so we've been through processes, price, and deliverables. The next one is timelines. Number 4, timelines. Now, I touched on that. I mentioned it when we talked about deliverables. When can they expect what it is you do? Now, this is on the client side. You need to do this for your business side as well and personal side. Timelines. When do things happen? Now, this process, when you have a client, what does it start with all the way to what does it end with? What is the timeline? When am I going to get these things done? Some of those things your client's going to see. Some of those things your client's going to see. And some of it they're not going to see. But it's still your process. It's still the things that you must do in order to get this stuff done. What is it you do? So for a client process, my client process usually starts off with a phone call that I've received. It could start off with an email that I've received, a web form, a text, and occasionally it's in person. We're at something and we're there together. But almost always it's a phone call or an email. So I'm picturing in my mind a phone call. What is it that I do with that phone call? What is it that I say? What am I trying to convey? What do I need to make sure that they know so that they can make an educated choice of whether I'm the right tool to help them solve their goal? By the way, I'm the expert, so I generally know whether I'm the right tool to help them or not. I say generally, I know specifically if I'm the right tool. I can press the button in front of anything. So can you. That does not make you the right tool. You can turn a screwdriver around and hammer a nail into a wall, but that's not the right tool. So therefore, just because you as a tool can do it does not mean you're the right tool for the job, guys. One of the things that I highly recommend is for your marketing side, this is a little bit of bonus information, but on your marketing side is to create relationships with other businesses, especially those who target the same market you do, but aren't competitors. And further that by having good relationships with them. For instance, I stopped photographing weddings years ago. Stopped in 2013, I thought. And then I implemented a pricing system that I thought would cause people to not be interested. And for some reason, it had the opposite effect. That's what you got last week on Double Your Wedding Sale. So it worked so well that I did it for another 2 years and then restopped in 2015. But now I can recommend other wedding photographers. And if they specialize in weddings, then they can recommend me for family portraits. And I can recommend someone else for high school seniors. I can recommend someone else for maternity and someone else for newborns. And if they specialize in just the one thing, and I say if, but I say also if and only if that you have that kind of relationship. If they're the generalist photographer who photographs everything, then you don't have that kind of relationship with them. Doesn't mean you can't have a relationship with them. It just means you're not going to refer business to them because they are a competitor. I teach that in the Essential Marketing class. It starts in a few weeks, about 5 weeks from now. That one is a paid one. I have to put food on the table. I get hungry. Family gets hungry. And we like having a house. So yeah, not everything's free. But that one has a cost, but it's so worth it. And I guarantee it. If it doesn't work for you, I'll just give you your money back. No problem. Yeah, serious. And so again, timelines, this is just everything that you're doing. Write it down. Your point of view, from the client's point of view, everything, every single little step, every single little detail. And the final one, number 5, is availability. When are you available for business? When do you work? Several weeks ago, we talked about, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about planning next year. You start early, way early. But you start by taking out the days you don't want to work. Plan your vacations first. Maybe you don't want to work on birthdays, kids' birthdays, grandkids' birthdays. Maybe you know ahead of time when your dentist appointments are going to be, optometry. Yep, anything that you have the ability to plan it, put it on your calendar. Know your availability well before you start the year. Know what days are available. And on those days, regular office hours. What does that mean to you? Well, you have a belief filter. It means something different to you than it does to me. So write it down. You may think, well, I'm not going to forget. You're not the only one, guys. You may be a one-person business, but it doesn't affect only you. You probably have family. And if you don't, you still have friends that might want to go out and have lunch with you sometime. This way, you know when you can say yes and when you can't. Availability. So that you know, so it's easy to plan. It's easy to do your marketing plans and all your plans because you know when you're available for business. You know how many sessions that you can do during this given period of time because you've planned it out. That way, when you run some kind of a special, you can actually say, I have just 8 left because you actually know. It doesn't come out of thin air. I think for a lot of photographers, it actually does. They've probably heard create scarcity. So just throw a number out there. Okay. But if you've planned correctly, it's a real number. And that's what I recommend. So those are your 5. Let's just go over the titles of them real quick, just to be sure. First one we talked about was processes. Then we talked about price, deliverables, your timelines, and we ended up with availability. Now, there's some questions I want you to be thinking about as you're doing this. How long does it take to get your finished product? How long does it take to show your originals after the session? Some people just put them up online. Others go to their home and put it on the projector on their wall, like I mentioned earlier that I do. How long does it take? What do you do? If a client calls, how far in advance are you willing to book? A year? 2 years? By the way, if you're willing to book 2 years in advance, you better have your calendar 2 years in advance. Just don't play it willy-nilly. Oh, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's nothing there. It's 2 years out, so I couldn't possibly have anything. You might be right, but might is not the right way to work with clients. You want to go with certainty. So do they. They're expecting that from you. Do you include digital files sometimes? Do you not? Ever? What? Up to you. If you include them, when are they available? When are they available? If you don't include them, how are they available? If you don't include them at all, clearly state that you don't include them at all and why. Man, there's a lot of different things to think about. Your normal business hours, the style that you photograph it. If you can define your style, yeah, a lot of stuff. Which brings us to section 3 of 3. I want you to describe your box so that you can communicate your expectations and your processes. I don't know about you guys, but I don't care for it when someone says, well, that's our policy. To me, it's like they're using that as an out, like they don't care about the concern that I just brought to their attention. So let's discuss the channels that you have to share what it is that you do, and let's talk about the different ways you'll be able to share the business. So a channel is just where you're able to share what it is that you do. So for one is if you've got a website, your website. You've got an about me, you've got different places where you can share what it is that you do. Now, you're not going to share everything. You don't want to overwhelm people on your website. You want to share the good stuff, the exciting stuff, the stuff you think that your target market's going to love. So your website is one of those. The next one is social media. So your Facebook business page, not really your personal page, because they might have some difficulty with Facebook if you're putting too much business stuff on your business page or on your personal page. but on your business page for Facebook and Instagram and all the others, this is an area where you are going to share what it is that you do. Maybe a lot, maybe a little. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I wanted to ask a question. Do you have to pay to be a business on Facebook? I know you don't have to when you're a private person or individual.
If you're asking just for a business account, no. But if you obviously, if you start doing the advertising, boosting and that kind of thing, that is paid. But that's the only way you'd be paying, is if you did something extra.
Okay.
So you get that. Now you have to have a personal account. You can't have a business account without a personal account. So it's from your personal account that you add the business account. So again, social media, lots and lots of different ways to share and promote what it is you do on social media. And there's some who that's their only way that they do it. They don't have a website. They have a Facebook page, they have an Instagram, they have TikTok, they have LinkedIn. That's how they do their marketing. And this is where they can at least begin to share what it is that they do. And it is your policies, it is your beliefs that cause you to know what it is you're doing. Next is personal communication. This is generally through personal contact, when you actually have the ability to talk to someone. So you're at an event, which now that we're starting to talk about post-COVID, yes, it's still around, but things are changing. And some of us have already started getting together with people, and that's great. And I feel it's great. You have your own opinion because we all have different belief filters, and you're right and I'm right, for me and for you. So I feel it's great. When we're out and about, we're visiting with people, we have the opportunity to share. Now, we're not just talking on the street corner about what it is we do. There's a specific reason why we would do such a thing. But how are you going to do that? What are you going to say? How are you going to keep it limited? A while back, we talked about describing who you are and defining that. In my classes, just recently, we talked about creating a one-sentence description to make it very easy, something you could easily memorize and know what it is that you do. Again, what do? I specialize in emotional family portraits as home decor. It's very easy for me to remember this. It's a very short description. I think most people's are at least a little bit longer, but they still have to be short. 2 sentences is extreme when you're talking about something like this. Once they start having an interest and they ask questions, then you can answer and tell them a little bit more about what you do. But you've got to intrigue them first, not just talk and talk and talk. It's not a class like this. So that was personal communication. The next is, and you may think at first that this is the same thing, but it's not. And that's word of mouth. Now you may think, well, personal communication is word of mouth, Jim. Really? But we're not talking about that. Because when you share something or in any way, you've shared it on your Facebook page, you've shared it on a website, someone has gathered information from you directly or indirectly. They can share this with someone else. Word of mouth. What do you want them to share? Now you may think, well, they're going to share whatever they want to share. Exactly. So give them something that is really interesting so that they are motivated to share the things you want them to share. So yeah, you don't have control over who shares and who doesn't. And I don't mean clicking the share button, although that is one way. I mean, talking or visiting, but you don't have control over whether they do it or not. You don't have control because that's another person. But if you put out information that is interesting, that's exciting, that's clear, then they have a shareable piece of information. I think throughout your entire process, as you're writing it, you should purposefully put in little cool things that are probably unique to just you, that no one else is really doing, at least not that you're aware of. You define what those are. It's through your belief filter. So that's word of mouth. The next one is any specific literature that you have. Now, this would be your business cards. This would be those what I call lift cards or info cards that you've got your information on. It's basically a business card on steroids because they're much bigger, but you can hold more information there. And so we can have photographs and we can have testimonials and we can have information about what it is that we do and how they can take a next step of working with us. Whereas on a business card, it's a little bit too limited. I guess you could force all that stuff on there, but that'd be a lot of information on such a tiny space. And I don't know everybody could read that without a magnifying glass. So we don't want to do that on a business card. I think business cards still have their place. I think we still need them. But I think our information card is much more important. And you may wind up using it as your business card a lot of times. So any specific literature. Now, this could mean that you create a trifold brochure. And hopefully a lot of people took advantage of the special that Digital Pro Lab had last week on just that kind of thing. All the different things that you could hand out. I was one time in some little town square. I don't remember now where it was. I was just looking at all the businesses and one of them was a photographer. Oh, that's kind of cool. And so I parked, when you're in the town square, you can park right in front of the business. So I parked right in front and went up to the door and it was closed. It was after hours, so I wasn't surprised that it was closed. But on the outside was a little holder with a cover on it. So I guess rain wouldn't get to it. It was a covered area, so it probably wouldn't get to it anyway, but maybe dust. But you lifted that up and it said, take one. And it was a trifold brochure. I thought that was pretty good because they can't be there all the time that someone's going to stop by. And so they had this information. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to get out and visit and network and go to the chamber functions and leads groups, well, then having something to hand out is very beneficial to help share what it is that you do. So that's what I'm talking about with any kind of literature that you hand out, those kind of things. So that's all 5, right? Yep. Website, social media, personal communication, word of mouth, and any specific handouts, literature that you have. So those are the 5 channels that we just mentioned. Now, just going over this real quick, your policy manual is a basis for conveying the way you do business with your clients, your vendors, and associates, so that all concerned have a great experience working with you. This is something that we all talk about, or at least at some point we do. We want a great client experience. That starts with you defining what it is you do, what kind of tool you are. If let's just make this simple, you're a tool at a large tool store, Home Depot, Lowe's. You're just a tool. Define what tool you are. Define everything about you. How you work, what shelf, what section you're on, how to find you. And then once you're found, how to buy you. What are the steps? And then once you've purchased it and you're about to use it, how to use that tool. I think one cool thing that you can do that not a lot of photographers are doing is create a piece of literature that talks about cleaning and caring for your framed portrait from Landers Photography. Of course, you're going to input your business in that space. Clean and care of your portrait. When you do something like that, you have elevated your product. How many photographers are doing such a thing? I wouldn't be surprised if you've heard of it. Are you doing that? Yeah. Include that in what you do. A piece of literature that says clean and care of the product that you've sold them. Now, if you're selling digital files, that particular example won't work for you. If you're selling prints, You want just as much as they want for those prints to last a long time. By the way, in mine, it says, if this ever fades, now please don't put it in the window, especially a west facing one. But if this print ever fades, call me, email me, contact me in some way. I'll replace it for you. And I'm not going to charge you. I want that photograph to look amazing. I want you to be able to enjoy it without looking at it saying, oh, it's faded. I'm not as happy with it as I once was. I don't want that. You don't want that. Now you might not want to take on that responsibility of a lifetime guarantee, but I've chosen it. And by the way, no one's ever taken me up on it. But it sure sounds good. It sure gives them confidence in who I am and what I do. It's just one of the processes. It's just one of my policies. And my policies are about what I do, my belief filter, what I believe in, what I want my clients to believe in about me. When I take the time to write all this stuff down, I can better convey it. Give you a couple of examples. We have to be intentional in conveying what it is that we do, in conveying our policies, to make sure that we're delivering what we say we're going to deliver, to be able to over deliver and have them notice. By the way, before I realized this, for every single client, I did something extra. And nobody ever said anything. I didn't understand that. Did they just not notice? I say nobody. On rare occasions, someone would say, I noticed that you put an extra 5x7 in there. Do I owe you something for that? No. I knew you wanted it. I just gave it to you. There's times when I upgraded from a regular print to a canvas print. I knew they wanted it, but they couldn't afford it. So they got the regular print and I upgraded it for them. If I don't convey that, if I don't tell them, they may not notice. That seems like an odd one not to notice though. People have not noticed. I have upgraded people before and they didn't notice. So therefore, what must I do to cause them to notice? Because if they don't notice, it has no value. Now, it doesn't have in this instance dollar value. A lot of things we do have dollar values. This doesn't have a dollar value interest. This has a above and beyond value. This is you've done. This is you doing more. This is you doing more than what you say you're going to do. They have to know what your baseline is. They have to know what it is to expect before they start noticing the extra stuff that you do to cause yourself to fit into that category of under promise and over deliver. Now, you don't have to do that. You may think that's a dumb concept. If so, it will be conveyed in your policy manual, and that's fine. Whatever it is that you believe in gets conveyed in this policy manual. It's your box. It defines you. So there's a studio that has a couple of policies. Here's one. And I did not write this studio's policy down. I wrote the policy down, but I didn't write whose it was. So unfortunately, I can't give credit to this particular studio, but this person has a studio and they do not do digital files. They only do finished product. So their communication channel in this instance is social media. Example, whenever you get a new print album, a book, or finished product delivered to your studio, take a picture of it and share it on your Facebook page. Show your clients They're beautiful finished products and emphasize the importance so you can be excited for them. So this is a policy. This is something you do when you have it ready to go and you're about to go deliver it, or you have people come and pick it up. If you do that, I know not everybody does that. But however it is that you do business, what are your steps? What are your procedures? If you were to photograph that finished product and share that with them, or share it on Facebook, this is a cool marketing tool for you. Helps them get excited about it. Now, you may choose to do that before you've delivered it, to share only with them, maybe a text. Or you may want to keep it totally a secret, something to like a gift, a prize, so that they don't see it ahead of time. Either way is fine. Maybe afterwards, as they're opening it, you tell them, I am going to create a box opening. So they have this box, maybe they've had their 8x10s and 5x7s in it, and you've put it in a box with a pretty little bow, and it's got your name imprinted on it. By the way, this is all part of your policy manual. These are your steps, these are procedures, these are what you do. And then as they're opening it, you do an unboxing video. And you let them know ahead of time. You get permission to do this. And you put it on your Facebook page as a post. Talk about a good thing to market with. Again, assuming that they are good with that. And a lot of them are. That's one example. Here's another one. This person is conveying their policy via website, and they do wedding photography. So theirs is they put their starting price on their website. That's their policy. They don't put everything on there. They put only their starting price. Some photographers choose to put no price whatsoever online. You've got to call or somehow reach out in order to get that information. But this person has decided, I'm going to put my starting point. It actually says commission starting at, and it gives a number. And then maybe you outline the range of coverage, the things that you have available, the things that you can do. That's what this person has done. You can say things like wedding collection starting at, or commission starting at. And those that maybe you have an upgraded version, and you can say upgraded versions like packages including albums start at. So you could do something like that. But again, this is your policy. This is what you believe in. Now, why are you choosing to do that? This is, again, part of your belief filter. So you must include it. Why are you choosing to, not only what is it that you're going to do or that you do, but why do you do it? Back it up. You need to be able to, this is what causes us to remember. Not all of us have photographic memories. I'm not in that category. My wife would agree with that. Next example, and this is the final example. When you're going to deliver prints. And so if you're a wedding photographer, maybe you say 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Maybe you're saying 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is that's your turnaround time. I'm not telling you what it should be. I'm not judging what it is. I'm saying that you have to define it and why. My thought is, if you do it too quickly, it looks like you're not busy. And it kind of indicates that maybe you're new and you just don't know all the different steps that's involved. Or it could mean that you've outsourced everything and that you can get it back next day. Whatever your process is, it's right. As long as you've defined it, you've included in your policy manual, you've defined what it is you do and the reason why you do it and how you convey it. There's no right or wrong here. There's only good and correct. I think that's what a lot of business people are confused about. You're not in the process, guys, of deciding what things are good for you and your business and your clients, or bad for you and your business or your clients. No, you're only putting good things in front of you, at least intentionally. Yeah, things in hindsight we may realize weren't good. But for the most part, you're putting good things in front of you. The problem isn't that, the good versus bad. The problem is you guys aren't defining good versus correct. And correct, that's your belief filter. That's when you've defined what right is, what correct is versus good. Because there's a lot of good things that you're not going to include in your business for whatever reason. Just because you don't include them doesn't mean they're not good. It just means that they're not correct for you and what you're trying to accomplish for your target market. So in this one, this person chooses to do personal communication in order to convey what their turnaround time is. That's how they choose to do it. And they say that in a phone call, when you're discussing the viewing appointment, tell your clients that the prints will be ready a certain number of weeks after the ordering. At the viewing appointment, remind your clients that their prints are going to be ready in that certain amount of time, and that you'll call or whatever it is that you do once they do come in, whatever your procedure is. Now, I would say when you do define what your turnaround time is, that you give yourself leeway, because mistakes happen, things happen. You have a doctor's appointment, a kid has a doctor's appointment. There's going to be things that cause delays. And so if you think it'll take you a week, say 2 weeks. Here's the reason. If you say it'll take you a week and it takes you 1 or 2 days extra, you may have an upset client. However, if you started from the beginning and you said 2 weeks and you get it done 1 or 2 days late compared to your your normal 7-day turnaround, or the amount of time it's going to take you is just a week, but it took you a week and 2 or 3 days, you still have gotten it in before the date that you told them it would be. They're thrilled, even though you know you're late. They don't know it. From their point of view, you got it done ahead of time. How many businesses get things done ahead of time? When it happens, you notice. How about you set yourself up for being that business that is noticed? It's all part of the plan, part of your belief filter, and ultimately it goes into your policy manual. So those of you who are here on the Zoom call, a couple of you have made some comments and asked some questions, but tell me something that you might include in your policy manual, or ask a question about something that you're thinking about that you might include, as far as maybe a process, how you do it, how you convey something, when to convey something. This is surface level, so we're not going into a whole lot of detail, about specific words you use, but maybe things to be included in your policy manual versus things that shouldn't be, or maybe share one of yours with me.
I have a question that has to do with your video projector. What kind of software do you use to do your slideshow, or do you do some videos in it? Or, I'm just curious as to how that process works.
Perfect. Yeah, good. So this is part of the process, and this absolutely goes into your policy manual and your process manual. And this is based on what you want that client experience to be like. So, if you want the Cadillac of the software industry for showing your photographs, then you're going with time exposure. The company name's time exposure. The product name is ProSelect. ProSelect. So that is just a great product. Now, there is a good learning curve there. It takes a bit of time getting used to that. But you could go with something as simple as whatever product that you're using to cull your images and organize your images. You could use something as simple as Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. I mean, it has stars, it has flags. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. And I've done it that way many, many times, where we just go through and we star the images. Those who get a 5-star, we go through them a second time, and we put a 4-star on those that we want to pull out. And I have it set up where if you have anything less than 5 stars, that image just falls off. So you're only left with the ones that you want. So yeah, you could do that. Now, the advantage to using something like Swift Galleries and these in ProSelect and these other products, there's a bunch of them, by the way, is you could photograph the area, or let's say that you for some reason aren't able to take you and your projector to the location. This isn't the ideal version to me, but if we need a plan B, this is an awesome plan B. They could photograph the wall that they want to have it displayed on, or you could have done it while you were there during the planning session, if that occurred, and put that into the software. Now, when you do that, you put in just a regular sheet of paper on the wall, because that's 8.5 by 11. So it's a standard size. And so your software program will know that. And so when you put an 8 by 10 on the wall, a 16 by 20, a 30 by 40, a 40 by 60, when you put it on the wall, it's actually correctly sized digitally. So you could do this via Zoom on your computer and them being at home on theirs. So yeah, some cool stuff. Now, lots of different awesome ways to be able to do that. And I definitely recommend having a plan B. I mean, if you can't be in your client's home for some reason, I still want to be able to have this session. I still want to be able to move forward. I don't like limbo, and I know creatives do not like being in limbo. Creatives don't like standing in lines. We don't like traffic unless we've got something that we can be doing. So if we're listening to something, music that we enjoy, okay, that can make it okay. If we're listening to a podcast, if we're listening to some recorded information, if we're talking to someone on the phone, okay, then we can be okay. But if we've got nothing and we're just sitting in a line, traffic or something, we creatives, we don't like that. We're not comfortable with that. That's not what we would, if we had a choice, we wouldn't choose that. So does that, did I go off on a tangent too far?
No.
Or did I cover what you were saying?
Thank you. Yeah. And the other thing is are there any programs that can auto catalog, emails and email responses? I just seem to have a hard time making my own folders and keeping track. And, when you get lots of emails in a day, they can get buried real quick. So I'm just curious as to, what your process is for that.
So yeah, good question. There's a lot of different software programs for that as well. I definitely would recommend people leaning in the direction of studio business software, stuff that's made for photographers. Yes, it has a cost associated with it. Pretty much everything does. But it's usually under $100 a month. Now, if you want to go with a real expensive solution, and I absolutely do not recommend this, but if you're curious, what does an expensive solution sound like? I have Infusionsoft, and it's $320 a month. But that's only because I've been with them for well over a decade. The same thing that I have, they now charge over $900 a month for. So that is an example of an expensive version. You just don't need that stuff, though. And if you feel you do, then you do what you feel is right. Of course, it's your belief filter. So you, my favorite online studio business programs, and in no particular order, are Dubsado, Pixify, Sprout Studio, Irisworks, and Honeybook. Those are my top 5. And that is not in any particular order, guys. These are tools. It'd be like that these were all hammers. I can't tell you what's the right type of hammer for you. You're going to go in, you're going to hold that hammer, and you're going to weigh it. Does it feel good? Does it hurt your wrist when you're holding it? Is it the right length? What kind of work are you going to do with it? So if someone's saying, oh man, this is the best software, maybe it is for them, but that doesn't mean that it is for you. So do your research on that. And that's not directed at Steve, of course. That's directed at anyone who's thinking about business software for their photography business. So it's lots of different styles, lots of different things. You go and you pick, you look and see all the differences. I'd say do your policy manual first, so you know what it is you want to accomplish, how you want your clients to be treated. This really helps you identify what tools are the right tools for you. I think a lot of us get too excited and we move to the tools first. We move to the software, we move to the cameras, the lenses, we move to all that stuff first. That's not where you start. You start by defining who you are, what your belief filter is. You're viewing life through this filter. Yes, it's mental, but it's a filter. You're seeing life through it. It changes how you view things. It's your reality. It's why your reality is different than the next person's reality. And it's what makes life awesome and difficult. Is that a dual-edged sword, double-edged sword? Yeah. And so, yeah. So for your email, back to your direct question, Steve, the email program, you can use something as simple as the email program that comes with what you have. You've got, maybe you've got a Google email, maybe you have Outlook as your email program. Each one of these has subdividing categories and folders and ways that you can manipulate and change and organize the things that you have. However, these business software programs are going to do that better. So I definitely recommend those, and those that have email support. My Infusionsoft has that. I can route all of my emails through it. I don't, I should, but I don't. In that program, if I send an email out through the program, that email that I just sent goes into that client's database. And so when I go and look at Joe Smith, I can see every single email that I've sent to him and that he's sent in response. I can just go through it. I don't have to go to my email program in order to find that out, because that's a pain. And that's probably what you're talking about. I get usually 300 to 400 emails every day. And the majority of it's junk, just like you guys. And there's, the majority of it is sales, and, it's Amazon Prime Day. So yeah, I'm getting tons of it today. Groupon, yeah, everybody is, it's crazy. Groupon sends like 5 a day. They need to slow it down just a little. And others are sending it that many times a day too. It's pretty wild. There's certain things I like to keep up with. And so I would actually get rid of some, but I like to monitor what it is they're doing and who's using those tools and how effective. So there are some that I'm doing just for learning purposes. So I can keep up, and, if those get more than a couple of days, I delete them. And I never open them up. But yeah, some way to organize that should be how you view it, and what you believe should be part of this policy manual. Your policy manual is just defining what your belief filter is, what it's all about, why it is, how it's conveyed.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for, is to have the emails inside of that studio management program, where it's actually in the database with that specific client. But if I want to spend $350 a month, though. No way.
Neither do I. And it's one of those things where once you get used to something, oh man, it's so hard to change. So, yeah, you kind of commit to it. It's kind of like when you purchase a camera and then you start investing in lenses, you're less likely to switch to some other brand because of the investment in those lenses. So this is the same thing here. I have spent so much time in processes and emails and just all the systems that are involved in that software program. It's a client relationship management, CRM type program, that it's kind of like that. I've invested all that into the lenses, and I can't switch to another company without having to reinvest into all those lenses. So that's why I've been sticking with this company, even though it's, I can buy a car for that. And I would rather buy a car with that money than put it towards that. good question. Good comments too, Steve. I appreciate that. And anyone else have any thoughts on their processes, their systems, the philosophies and the belief filter?
A couple of things that I kind of like. I've been doing in my old business. I was doing, documenting everything so that I'd remember. One of the things that to me was important is that nothing was in stone. It was simply a way to help me remember. And if I decided to change it, it was a conscious decision to change it. And then it was changed. End of story. Just because it's a policy that you define doesn't mean you can't change that policy, assuming that you, in fact, decide to change the policy.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I keep all of my stuff like that in Google Drive. And with Google Docs, I can get to it from anywhere. So if I'm out and about and something comes up and I see it and it's like, oh, wow, that would be a good thing to add, I can add it right then and there into my policies and procedures area and, go back and refine it later. But I have it accessible on my phone, which I have probably way more than I should, but it's always available. And I can always sit down on my computer and type away at it and format it nicely and make it printable and all that other stuff. So literally I have it accessible everywhere and it's still easy to maintain. Just a couple of my biggies.
Yeah, that's some good ideas, and definitely Google Drive is an easy one for all of us to access. It's easy. I like there's like the tournament planning committee. I like being able to put information into Google Drive because it's not just local on my computer. Everyone who's on the planning committee can access what it is that I'm doing, and any of the other planning committee, the chairs of the individual committees are able to update and change and do whatever it is that they need to do without having to ask me. They can just do it. And so Google Drive provides a good tool for that. It's not the only one that's available like that, but it's certainly the easiest, and it's certainly free. I don't know if it's the easiest or not. I guess that it is. But the free part is, well, we can afford that. Thank you for sharing that, Miguel.
No problem.
Well, we're coming up on our ending time. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments or questions that they needed to get in before we close this? If not, then Javi, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
No, nothing on my end. Like I said, again, thanks for always providing, solid content to the San Antonio photography community. I think stuff like this is just invaluable to have as a resource. And so, yeah, thanks again, Jim.
Thank you, Javi. So next week at noon, Monday at noon, we're going to be doing Photography is a Luxury. Treat it like one. It's a philosophy that I have, and I think that people agree, especially once they've heard it, the subject matter. Photography is a luxury. People don't need what it is that you sell, guys. I think a lot of people try and have this philosophy that that everybody deserves a nice family portrait. Everybody deserves a nice this or that, and I want everybody to have that, but I also know that you're not a charity. You're a business. You are trying to do something cool to your clients, but you're also trying to be doing something cool to your family. And so don't do this as a negative to your family and a positive to the client. If you aren't making a profit, then you're bringing nothing into your family, yet you've taken time away from them. You're not spending time with them. You're spending it with someone else's family. So get something for that exchange. You deserve to make a profit. You do. Ford might think that everybody deserves a car, but they can't do a price range of $50 a month. It just doesn't work. So even though they may have this philosophy of we want to make it possible for everyone to be able to have a car, they aren't a charity. They can't afford that. They would go out of business if they attempted to do that. And guess what, guys? You will too. What you have is a luxury item. Give you another example. If you're going to the furniture store and you wind up on the showroom floor and you see the things that you can just buy right now, in your mind, I want you to ask this question. If you were to go to the custom section, where you could make it the certain number of feet wide that you wanted, the certain number of inches high that you wanted, the certain number of inches that you wanted in the width, the type of material that you wanted, leather, the color that you wanted, all these different variables. If you were to have someone custom make it, would they cost more than the ones that there were a whole bunch of them already made, sitting ready to go in the showroom floor and back in the warehouse? Which would cost more? The custom item. Guys, you create a custom item. You can only sell it to one person. The images that you create, you're photographing a portrait of someone, you're photographing a family portrait, you're photographing a high school senior, you're photographing a newborn, you're photographing a maternity, you're photographing a wedding. When you photograph that family portrait, how many other families can you sell that portrait to? 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000? The furniture company can sell that same couch to hundreds, thousands. Ford can sell the same car to thousands of people. You don't have that kind of product. You have a custom product, a one-time thing. We're going to be talking about that philosophy and how it applies to what it is that you do and how you can use that information and a little bit more to your advantage, both you internally and being able to convey that to where people are excited to pay more for your custom product. I want to thank you guys for taking your time, sacrificing something else to be here with us today at this episode of the Portrait Profit Show. And I encourage you to share this with friends. Help us lift the entire photography community. Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab can make an impact, but it takes everybody working together to make a change. And we're trying to make a change. We want to uplift the photography community. We want everyone who has an interest, a passion for photography, dedication, and wanting to use that as their income source. We want everyone who feels that way to be able to have the opportunity to do so. And the only way is through education, through knowing a little bit more than they knew they know a little bit more today than they knew yesterday. And there's lots of different sources to do that. But we want to help. We want to make it happen. And we can, but we need your help. Please share this with your friends. Share this on social media. When you see a post about it on social media, click that share button, click that like button. You know, it shows how many times someone has seen it versus the number of people that share it or like it. Have you ever been to a YouTube page and it shows this many views and this many likes? It's usually less than 10% have taken the time to simply do this. Click. That creator spent a lot of time putting that together. It takes you that long to say thanks. And it helps to uplift the photography community. So I'm asking for your help. Share this, share what we're doing with your friends, with the different people that are influenced by what you have to say, and share what we're doing here. And let's see this photography community grow and prosper and just do incredibly well, so that we can all see what's in store for us, that this light at the end of the tunnel becomes bright and we see it as being reality. Put on your schedule next Monday at noon. We're going to be talking about photography as a luxury. Treat it like one. Thank you guys for being here today. See you later.